In our 6th grade English Language Arts class, Maggie Steiner and myself, Jennifer Youngworth, will be teaching a unit on American short stories and women in literature. For this particular lesson, we'll focus on the short story The Lottery, written by Shirley Jackson. The Lottery first appeared in New Yorker magazine and was written in the late 1940s. The story is about a fictional small town and their annual ritual, the lottery. Through this lesson, Maggie and I would like students to build analytical reading skills, as well as be able to determine specific elements of a plot through character actions. Students should be able to cite textual evidence to support their claims. The target standard we'd be meeting is describing how a particular story or drama's plot unfolds in a series of episodes, as well as how the characters respond or change as the plot moves toward a resolution. A supporting standard for this lesson would be citing textual evidence to support an analysis of what the text says. As students read The Lottery, it's important to note that there could be some advanced vocabulary as well as controversial topics in the short story, such as death and the society structure. Before students begin reading The Lottery, we'd ask them what they understand about plot and character relationships. To teach students about plot structure, we would use a plot diagram activity. Students will be given 6 sticky notes in an array of colors to use to develop a folding diagram in their notebook. Each sticky note will contain one of the 5 plot elements. For this particular lesson, we're going to be using Steve Almond's view on plot, which is a protagonist's conflict is against his or her deepest fear. Students would then use each of their sticky notes to write clues about each element of plot. For exposition, they would understand that that is where characters meet and where a conflict or problem is introduced. They would go through the 5 elements, writing down specific characteristics to help guide them in their future reading. After filling out the folded diagram and gluing or taping it into their notebook, students will follow an example of a plot diagram and break down using the fairy tale Cinderella. Students will then pull out their notebooks and take a page and draw a line down the middle, making 2 columns. Students will then draw 5 rows and label them with the 5 elements of plot: exposition, rise in action, climax, falling action, and resolution. The top left column is labeled plot elements, while the right column is labeled characters. This is where students can cite specific character, actions, or text from the story that provides evidence the plot is changing and evolving. Before students begin reading The Lottery, it's important to note that in order to meet all student learning needs and readiness, students who do struggle to read at the same pace will have the option to do partial audio and partial reading of The Lottery. As students begin reading The Lottery or listening on audio tape, they'll highlight or record significant events or details from the story in their double journal entries. After students read The Lottery, they'll break into small groups to discuss the plot, using the plot diagram that they have. Students will have differing opinions, and the marked text, notes, and sticky notes they use during their reading will help them cite their textual evidence. Students who are not comfortable working in small group discussions will be able to work individually in order to meet their learning needs and foster critical thinking skills. Once students complete their small group or individual breakdown of a plot diagram, we'll return to a whole group discussion where Maggie and I'll ask students, well, how does the exposition differ from climax? What character actions contributed to the climax of the plot? And how are rising action and falling action different? Using information from their reading as well as their small group discussion, students should be able to answer the following questions. In order to hold our students thinking, we'll ask them a few closing questions, such as what part of the plot did they like best and which did they like least? And if they were the author, would they have written any part of the plot differently? Students will spend about 10 minutes writing in their notebook, rewriting either the beginning of the story, the climax of the story, or the resolution of the story in order to change the plot just a little bit. We'll use formative assessments throughout this lesson plan, and students will receive informal feedback on how they use their plot diagrams, group discussions, and double journal entries to explain the plot of a story and how it and the characters develop.